It's KBKW's Coffee Talk. It is 8:11, and with me is Ben Winkelman, who is a city councilman in Hoquiam, and it's been, 3 terms?
Yep, just finishing 3rd term.
And so what made you decide to run for mayor of Hoquiam?
Well, I've often been interested in running for mayor, but the big thing, I think, is that we need to pay attention to our working relationships with other organizations, outside organizations and entities that are critical for us to work with and communicate with to complete projects.
So you don't think that's been done well enough?
I think we've hurt some relationships. I've been council president for a number of years over the last few years, and it's fairly common for entities that are frustrated with working with the city to come to the council president and say so. It's pretty easy for me to get them to the right people and get the help that they want, but just some frustration and not getting communication back.
Back from,
I think it's from our mayor, but not just our mayor. Mm-hmm. Sometimes different priorities are set on different projects, and so I.
What would be an example of where things kind of fell through?
Well, I wouldn't say they're necessarily have fallen through, but it's really critical, in particular when we work on large projects where there's environmental concerns, and we have citizens that come to our meetings, and they bring valid concerns. In order for us to move ahead and find projects that will benefit the community by providing jobs or a good tax base, we also have to address all of the concerns that are brought to us by other citizens that have environmental concerns. We need to work closely with the tribe. We need to work closely with the port. We need to work closely with the Department of Ecology, Department of Health. It depends on the type of project. But
so you're talking about big groups. I mean, big organizations.
So many entities need to work together to make big projects happen. And what's important is that we're talking about the right issues at the right time. And I think the city's been criticized for that for many years. And most government entities are criticized for that. But I think we could do a better job at working on those working relationships with other entities instead of kind of coming up with personal relationship issues that kind of hinder that process. And then you have a project that gets completed in a large group of people that are not satisfied. We could do a better job at that.
So now Timberworks would be one of those areas where one city is working with another.
Yeah, I really like the Timberworks project, and when we had our joint meetings over at the PUD building, that it was pretty exciting, and that's a good example of the environmental concerns being properly addressed.
So you're happy with the way things are moving in that direction?
I really like Timberworks.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it's going to benefit both cities.
It's going to benefit both cities and lots of property. Eventually, when we're able to change the issue that we have with flood insurance, that's a big deal, because when you're talking about buildings, both commercial and residential buildings that are in those flood zones, currently some flood insurance policies cost more than a mortgage payment.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of nuts.
So, and that would address also rental homes and rental availability and commercial projects, because investments, when an investor looks at those numbers, they have to consider that flood insurance that they're going to have to pay for, or you have to bring in a cash investor. But that could really change the face of real estate. And I know you have your regular meeting today on air, and I like to stay on top of that, but Timberworks hopefully is going to be a big project with benefit to everyone.
Now, what about looking at the consolidation of the fire departments and that sort of thing? What's your take on all of that?
I am excited about the fact that we're able to talk about it now. Mm-hmm. It comes up. It's been coming up for many, many years. I think we're making the most progress kind of by the set of circumstances that we have right now. It seems to be working well, and I appreciate that we're taking a really good look at that. So if the study is properly done and it looks like it makes sense, then we should move ahead with it. If there are some concerns that are not able to be addressed, then we should definitely be talking about them and not just give up on the idea.
Now, what about the potash facility that's looking to move into the Hoquiam area?
That's a good example of what I was talking about earlier. We need to make sure that we're working with the proper people and including everyone's concerns, because a project like that could be very big for our community. It could provide some employment. It could provide a real nice tax base, but it's critical that we work closely with support.
So you get the feeling that the city is not quite working as well with the port and the tribe and the potash people. Or
my concern is that in the past, maybe some of those groups haven't been heard as well as they should have been, and so now there's a little bit of a lack of trust between organizations, and so everyone's working kind of on their own to make sure that things happen. And we've got an amazing city administrator, and Brian Shea's working very diligently to see that project, as well as many others, make some progress. But there are definitely some environmental concerns, and if it's not freight mobility or sound, thankfully it's not as critical that they're containing, explosives per se. We are talking about something that's in smaller quantities is not of any concern. So I think the project would be a great benefit, but we have to be really careful about making sure it's set up properly.
Now, what about the business district of Hoquiam? There's been some changes and improvements there and additions. So
that's one thing. I think every candidate or many candidates say, they'll put a yard sign out, for example, and it says experienced. And I think it's really important when you're comparing candidates to say, what is that candidate's experience? My experience when I came to Hoquiam in 2002, I really wanted to be involved in my community. So I joined the then called Hoquiam Development Association, and I worked in that organization. Eventually, I was the president of that organization. And when that organization changed kind of its goals, we formed a subcommittee called the Hoquiam Business Association. The Hoquiam Business Association was a formal organization that I formed in my law office with many volunteers. Almost all of them were business owners, and it was a very exciting time when, and at or about that time, Jack Durney was the mayor, and he put together something that they called Hometown Hoquiam.
Right.
And I really like that name for a little bit different reason. But what has happened since in the last 3 or 4 years, that support group, I'm no longer in that organization. I helped run it for 11 years. There's a council person that's appointed to sit on that board, and I haven't heard a report from them for some time. The current president is very motivated and loves the organization, but doesn't have the support that it used to have a few years ago. And so it's important to do that, or to work with Greater Grays Harbor. So
as mayor, you would kind of put yourself into it a bit more, the organization itself?
Yeah, my experience with that organization was a good one, and we accomplished many, many tasks, all for the benefit of our citizens and those businesses in Hoquiam. And it's unfortunate that the current state is that they're struggling on their membership. They don't have the events put together that we had before, and so I feel like they could use some more support from the city, but it's not a financial support. Hometown Hoquiam, to me, means, and I've been asking people when I've been knocking on doors, which I started doing a couple of weeks ago, what does Hometown Hoquiam mean to you? What makes it your hometown? And some people honestly say, well, it's not my hometown. I'm just living here, and I'm plan to move on in a couple of years. But most people can give you a real concise answer. Why is this your home? And it's just been amazing. I've asked some of them, hey, I would like to record this. Are you okay with that? Because they're telling some really interesting stories, many of them historical stories about why this is hometown to them. I grew up in the last live-in logging camp in the lower 48 states. That was Camp Grisdale. It closed when I was a little kid, and I really missed that community environment. Everybody knew everybody. If I needed something, I knew any adult there had my back. Any kid there had my back, and I knew that I would step up and have theirs. We moved to Montesano back when I was in third grade, and I grew up in Montesano wanting that feeling again. And by the time I graduated in 1993 from Montesano, I felt that way. And some of my friends joked with me and called me Mr. Montesano, because I knew everybody. Mm-hmm. I had a paper out in pretty much every house there. I delivered the paper at one time or another. And it felt really nice. When I went away to college, I went to Grays Harbor, then I went to Washington State University. I spent my first year of law school at Whittier Law School in Costa Mesa, California. And then graduated from Gonzaga University with my law degree. We came back home, and I was concerned, honestly, moving into the city of Hoquiam because of the size. I was still wanted that hometown feeling, and much to my surprise and delight, I can find that in Hoquiam. And when I walk down the street, that's what hometown Hoquiam means to me. It means that when I walk down the street, I can look somebody in the eye and know, hey, they've got my back and I've got theirs. And you can get that feeling in Hoquiam. And to me, that's what hometown Hoquiam means.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Ben Winkelman, who, now you're a council president as well?
I am, yes,
okay.
This year. Yep.
So Hoquiam Council President and running for mayor. We'll be back in just a moment. It's 8:23.
Coleman Mortuary.
It's KBKW's Coffee Talk. It is now 8:24, almost 8:25. Now, what about law enforcement? You have Jeff Myers is the police chief, very, very popular guy.
Yes.
And so, what are some of the things you'd like to see included in the police department? I know you got the jails full now, and maybe if the potash company builds, that's what, a couple of $1 million coming into Hoquiam?
Yeah, it provides a nice base. Something that a lot of people don't understand is that such a substantial increase in tax base will actually help with their personal taxes, and it's difficult to understand that for some people. And I think the biggest concerns are environmental and freight mobility related to that project. Mm-hmm. And they certainly need to be addressed.
Sure.
I feel like at this point everybody's talking about the right issues to move ahead on that.
What you guys need is a car dealer too, because they can.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a car dealership there. We've got a small one, a small used car dealership over there. But it'd be nice to have some new cars over there. And I think when we talk about the different projects and needs, that is kind of what Hometown Hoquiam meant to some people in the past. Hometown Hoquiam was an effort that when I was on the business association and we worked with the city and we sat down and we raised funds and we hired consultants to come in and do a large study, and we put together a task list of probably 1,000 different tasks, assigned them to different groups, and when you take that sort of approach, we accomplished, I would say, 90% of the tasks that were on there. And those came from the citizens coming into town hall type meetings and saying, this is what I want Hoquiam to be. This is what I see Hoquiam as being. And it's been too long since we've done that. And I want to know what the citizens want Hoquiam to
So
be.
if you're mayor, you would put that back together again?
I'm not sure I would do it exactly the same, but yes, something similar. And my experience is kind of a varied experience. I was on the business association, like I said, for 11 years. Prior to that, 3 or 4 years with the Hoquiam Development Association. But I've also been the president and worked on the board at New Horizons Federal Credit Union. And we've received national awards while I was the president of that organization. We're a low-income credit union. So because it's a designated low-income area, we've benefited from a few different federal grants, but we've received multiple awards, and that credit union's really healthy. I don't think that that's because of me per se, but I certainly did I would say a good job. We did well with bringing the right people to the table at the right time so that we could communicate and grow that credit union. That's a little credit union, but it's very important to a lot of people in our community.
Now the business you own, will you have somebody else kind of running, or do you have somebody else running it anyway with all the other stuff?
There's a couple, yeah. So 717 K Street used to be the Hoquiam Aquatic Center. Just before the city was going to kind of be forced to take that building down, we bought that building, and there's our apparel company is in there. My dad and I own that company, and we make some of the best base layers in the world. We ship all over the world. They're manufactured there. You can stop in and check it out. But I also, in 2015, purchased what used to be the old YMCA building, which is right next door. And that's now a public event center. And we've got dancing schools and power tumbling team in there, hundreds of kids every week. It's great.
30 seconds left. How can people support your campaign, and do you have a website?
I do. They should go to hometownhoquiam.com. You can sign up if you'd like signs there, or if you want to make financial contributions to sign up to help out with parades, what have you. I also have a separate cell phone there, and I'm happy to take calls from anybody at any time of the day.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
It is now 8:29. News up next.